There was nothing else at all in the whole world but football.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Triple F for another episode of the Triple F Show, where Paul Sheridan, frontman of the Wakes and lifelong Celtic fan, joined me to talk all about football shirts. I had him on the show not so long back to talk about his beloved Celtic, the hoops, and we briefly discussed the Celtic top that he was wearing at the time, and that was an away shirt. I can't remember the year, but he does tell us during our chat. But from there, I could just tell he was equally as passionate about football kits as I am. So that pretty much gave me the idea to dedicate this episode all about football kits. I hope you guys thoroughly enjoy. So, yeah, it's great to have you on again, Paul. Thanks for coming on, mate. I did want this show to more or less be about football shirts and football kits and whatnot. But before we get sort of stuck into that, I just wanted to ask you about Celtic and how things are getting on with Celtic. What's your thoughts and feelings with Big Ange?
You know, I'm quite enjoying the way things have been going this season. At times, they've played some very, very good football. There's still the defensive frailties, I think, that we need to be reminded of every few weeks, and I don't think there's I don't think a one goal is ever enough for Celtic, just with the amount of times that we can end up, throwing games away. There's still issues in the right back positions that we need to be filled in, and I think that there's all the little bits that could go wrong sometimes are always at the back of our mind. But certainly there's been a lot of good forward play going at some good attacking football. I think he's still tinkering with these positions and also with the tactics. Using kind of inverted fullbacks, which sounds quite exciting on paper, but I think with a couple of times we've been caught out this season. And there's a lot of injuries too. It's been good though. The past 3 games we've played very well in Europe and 2 domestic games. We're 4 points behind. A few weeks ago we've been written off as it was, but I think that we're making those positive steps. I'm quite excited. I think he's a manager that's very frank, that's is very media savvy, and I'm excited by some of the new players who've come into the side and have hit the ground running. Love Kyogo, I think he's absolutely fantastic. I'm really liking Abada. Jota's looking good too. There's a positivity. There's a big, huge rebuilding process that we knew was going to happen, but there's certainly the past few weeks have shown that we are on the road again, so to speak.
Excellent. When you say things kind of need a bit of time before they can sort of click into place, do you think that centre-back pairing is somewhere an area that perhaps needs a little bit of an improvement? Yeah,
big. Starfelt had come with a lot of hope, a few nervy-looking performances. I think that Carter Vickers is looking excellent. And he's been pretty solid there. Whenever Julien comes back, then we might have some more solidarity. But it's been interesting, arrivals with Anthony Ralston coming through into the squad, and I think even though he's been prone to errors, Joe Hart in goals has been a huge boost for us. I think that was something we should have really been nailing down last season, was the goalkeeper position, and Barkas was lost so much confidence. I think when your goalkeeper's not confident, then that doesn't really do much for your back four.
No, not at all. Do you think that it could be a case of the fact that you've brought in quite a number of new signings as well, and that perhaps takes a little bit of time just for them all to gel? Because if you look at the Celtic side at the moment, I mean, you've got Turnbull and a few others that were sort of there before, but a lot of them are new faces sort of coming in. Do you think it's a case of just giving them a bit more time to sort of gel together?
Yeah, I think that's what is never on your side in football time, but it's so important to have consistency for players to either fit into new positions or new tactics or new demands that are asked of them. So I think that the time issue and the opportunities for them to play more games together is that's really helping. I think that, Edward at the start was causing a bit of unrest because he was wanting away, he was wanting to leave, he was being promised one thing to go and had stayed on, things hadn't worked out, and I think that kind of upset the apple cart a wee bit because we couldn't really implement the things that we wanted to do in terms of going forward, because it's always at the back of your mind that your players are leaving. The same with Ryan Christie as well. So the huge amount of players that have come in has been met with the kind of players that have stayed and having to try to gel together. It's still, tinkering, and there's still mistakes that could be made. It's just a case of trying to make sure that the opportunities are, the consistency is there from game to game, and I think that's something that we are now stepping into a bit of a run with players that aren't injured and players that are able to have an understanding of now what it is to play for the club.
What's your thoughts on the guy with the 80s George Michael haircut, Jota? I mean, do you think there's a possibility that he could possibly be signed to a permanent contract? Because I know, is he here on is it a year loan at the moment with Celtic?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's from Benfica he's come from.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he seems to be doing very well. I think he gives us a good attacking flair. I think what he needs as well is, to have pressure on him and Abada from like Mikey Johnson and James Forrest coming in, because whenever that pressure's there, I'm fed up over the years with Celtic's sort of signing policy of year-long loan deals that eventually they depart, and it's not really. It shouldn't really be the way that Celtic work as a club. We should be a bigger club where we should be looking to sign players, sell players, etc., rather than bringing in people on loan for a year or 6 months, because that's another thing you think about consistency. I'd like to see Jota stay. Elyounoussi looks like he's doing well down in Southampton after having had a good loan spells. Then you get other players like Paddy Roberts, who kind of has disappeared a wee bit. But the affinity that players have with the club, they're always going to be doing more when they're there on that permanent basis. And sometimes it can be heartbreaking to realise that you've only got somebody for a short time. Of course, it can go the other way and things can go pear-shaped. But I like to see Jota stay. I think he has a good final ball. He's direct. He's attacking. He's got some good trickery as well, and he's got a great haircut.
Yeah, absolutely. It was something that stood out to me when I saw him for the first time. It's like that haircut looks really familiar, and then I think a George Michael Wham song came into my head, and it's exactly right.
You've got to have faith.
That's fantastic. I don't know. I haven't actually watched the video, but I don't know if you can correct me on this or not. But did he end up singing Last Christmas in a press conference or something?
I haven't seen that, but I'd love to.
I'll have to hunt that down. I don't know. Maybe it's a sort of fan edited joke or whatnot. But I saw the headline: Jota sings Last Christmas and then seeing him in a press conference. So I'll do a bit of research to find out if that's. Yeah. Who knows? I can imagine a Scottish reporter sort of bringing that up, and maybe him actually sort of fulfilling him and singing that back to him would be interesting. This is a fact checker for the Jota era. I can confirm that Jota, to this date, has not sung a rendition of Wham's Last Christmas during a press conference. I read the headline of an article that he finally responded to, where fans were likening him to the late George Michael, and I got them mixed up. Apologies, but my memory is truly appalling. He did, however, confess to the fact that The Father Figure was his favourite George Michael tune. So, Paul, the main reason why I've got you on here, as I mentioned before, is just for the more or less a big theme of the show is to talk about football shirts, and I'm a massive fan of football shirts. And the last time I had you on, we talked about the Celtic shirt that you were wearing at the time. I don't know if you can just sort of re-jog my memory as to what shirt that was for which year it was.
It was a 92, 93, 93, 94 Celtic away shirt that was made by Umbro. That was the pinstripe black and green, which was a massive hit back in the day, and I'd love to see it come back in a new format as shirts become recycled over the years.
Yeah, because I think that was when we got chatting a bit then as well, and I think I discovered how much you love football shirts, and it just sort of gave me this idea to make this show all about football shirts. But because what we've kind of decided before the build up to the show is we've picked out 5 of our favourite all-time football shirts, so not just Celtic but clubs and international teams in general. But if you want to start with one of your 5 picks, mate, and then I'll go with mine, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. Well, the first shirt I'd like to talk about today is the 1994 Republic of Ireland Adidas away shirt, which was worn by the team in the 1994 World Cup. Now, it was a great shirt because it came in at a time when Adidas had been going down 2 sort of mindsets, one being the Adidas equipment range, which was very much the giant Adidas branding, and then also some cracking strips from this World Cup that were very much bespoke strips for each country. And in this case, it's the Republic of Ireland away kit, which I think was absolutely fantastic. White with 3 green disintegrating Adidas stripes, which I've actually just clocked. They're meant to be the Adidas. It's still got the Adidas branding as they kind of fade off into tiny little marks. Orange detail and kind of the Adidas equipment collar, but just a really great shirt. Images of Roy Keane sweating in the US sun, and Ireland taking on the mighty Mexico in this shirt. John Aldridge going mental at a linesman. It's one of my favourite kits of all time. Unfortunately, it was only really used for that World Cup, because by the time the end of 1994 came, Ireland had moved on to being sponsored by Umbro and had ditched that kit in favour of a couple of lovely Umbro numbers. But I just have a great affinity. Maybe it's that association with the summer of 1994 and that whole World Cup, which is my favourite World Cup of all time. And I just seeing the players in that kit, and it still holds up to this day. It's still a great shirt.
It's a good point that you bring up about sort of seeing kits at particular competitions, and there's just something about seeing a kit in the US of A and seeing it with that US sun, as you mentioned before. It's just almost seeing everything in a completely different light, and the players that are wearing those kits as well. It really does sort of it puts it under a new light. Really, it's it's great to see.
Like you know how you have things emblazoned in your head of players in certain kits, or what is it that makes football strips that we love? Is it the players that are wearing them? You might not necessarily support the team, but there's just something about a kit that really stays in your mind for years to come. Stands out, and I think that's a great example of one of those kits for me anyway. Yeah, definitely. You know what, as you sort of mentioned, a kit that sort of sticks out from your memory as a childhood, I'll go for my next one now, which is the France 98 World Cup 98 kit. Because I'll sort of mention before, you sort of came up with 6 kits, I think, by accident, and you said you were going to substitute one for another, and I've done exactly the same thing. I just had to have France 98 in there. It sort of came to me late, and then I realised there's no way I can leave this out. It was just such an iconic kit for me, and it's one that I just love seeing players like Zidane and Henry and Vieira and Petit, just sort of seeing them wear that kit, and it's it's absolutely fantastic. Because I think there was a kit from the 80s, I can't remember exactly which year, but I think it sort of started that whole style of kit with the sort of free thin lines, sort of horizontal lines on the sort of torso of the kit, and then I think the 98 just sort of brought that back as a bit of a retro sort of take on it, and just came up with, in my opinion, just a beautiful kit. And what I love about that is you've got the sort of red, white and blue Adidas trademark stripes on the shoulders as well. It's just a thing of beauty, in my opinion. I think the kit you're referring to might be from the 86 European Championships, possibly. With the three parts on it. I've always kind of liked the France kits. They've always produced some really even like they play on kind of French tradition with some of the pinstripe numbers that they brought out in recent times. I love the France 98 kit. And there's also that association with the success of that great French team winning the World Cup, and also you'll have a lot of association with some of those players who turned up at Arsenal as well.
Yeah. That might be one of the reasons why I enjoy it so much. But yeah, it's I don't know. There's just something really aesthetically pleasing about it.
Yeah, it's a great kit. It's also, it's a full summer of fantastic kits in that 1998 World Cup. But certainly that France 98 kit really stands out in terms of, it still lasts to this day as a great strip. It's the iconic wearers of the kit, such as a Zidane in the strip, and just the, I think even right down to the socks with the sort of red trim across at the top of the sock. It's a great kit. It's out the Adidas equipment range that time's kind of gone, and it's much more bespoke. And I think that the strips that Adidas are making by this point, 1998, are very much sort of tailored to each team, rather than the kind of big Adidas equipment numbers that you'd have seen in the 90s previous to it. It's a great strip.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned it before, but I mean, were there any other kits that sort of stood out for you from France '98 as well that you can kind of think of?
Inexplicably, I had the Yugoslavia kit from that World Cup. I don't know why I chose that one. I had been to Yugoslavia on holiday as a child. I had the Scotland strip from that World Cup, the Scotland away kit, which was a kind of yellow and red and blue number, which we wore, I think, against Norway. A great kit. The Mexico strip from that World Cup is one of the most iconic Mexican tops with the Aztec. I was going to say that. Yeah, that's a brilliant one. And I think the Brazil's first sort of venture with Nike is a great number, which kind of goes back to the round collar of the 1970s Brazil strips. I think the Japan is also a great strip of the Japanese one, which I've tried to buy a couple of times on eBay, but it's ridiculously priced. But yeah, there's some great kits. What about yourself? Thoughts for that World Cup on kits?
Just with that Mexico one, really, I just that's such an iconic kit and such an amazing one as well. And one thing that sort of springs to mind, I don't know if you can confirm this or not, but was the goalkeeper kit that sort of bright yellow. I think there was a couple of really bright numbers that were worn in that competition. I think it started, I don't know if it was the first ever, but it maybe have started the sort of trend in goalkeepers having the shorter sleeved kind of tops. Yeah,
Campos in the 1994 World Cup is all about the bright colours and the highlighter pens, and my brother still can't pass by a set of highlighter pens without drawing a Campos strip. I think by 1998 he kind of tones it down a wee bit. Actually, I think after that point when he's playing in MLS, he's wearing all black, which I was always disappointed in seeing him. But he's still got items of colour on his kit, and yeah, very much it's the short sleeve. I think him and Barthez are short sleeve wearers in that World Cup. I used to be a goalkeeper back in the day, and I was all about the full-on padding. Obviously playing up in Scotland, playing on red ash pitches and playing in some terrible conditions. They wasn't really made for the world of short sleeve goalkeeping strips. So, but you're right, yeah. By this time, the short sleeve kits are coming in. I think Campos is one of the first keepers I can remember with the short sleeves, because he also was a striker as well. At times he would come out and play out in midfield and things. I also have a Campos strip that I bought, and it was wrongly priced in Grieve Sports in Circuit Hall Street, and the top was £5 and the shorts were £5. And when I went to pay for it, the guy's like, I think this is the wrong price on this. This shouldn't be this. And I was like, I'm taking it. They're great kits, but we see everywhere you look now, it's short sleeve goalkeeper strips, and even if you buy a goalie top, you can't get the padded elbows anymore. So young folk don't know they're living with their 4G pitches and no red ash anymore.
If you're enjoying the FFF Show, then you might enjoy our other podcasts. The Magic Of is a show which profiles special clubs from all over the world to find out about their history, culture and fan base. Under the Floodlights invites fans to talk about their favourite players and managers, and the FFF Cinema is where guests and I review weird and wacky football films.
What's your next kit on the list, mate?
The next kit I'm going to go for is the 1987-88 Celtic Centenary Kit. It was not my first Celtic kit, but it was the first kit that I kind of wanted. and I had a couple when I was a wee baby, but then I kind of not really, still liked Celtic, liked football, but was more into like cars and different things, and Action Man and Star Wars and stuff like that. But then by the time 1988 came, I'm 7 years old and starting to be a bit more aware about football, and I like, I love Paul McStay. I love this kit. It's a great Umbro number. It has a lovely little checkerboard pattern inside it. But the biggest thing, the best thing for me about it at that time is they had a very, very special 100-year anniversary badge that was made.
Nice.
So it was the Celtic Cross, which went back to the days of the very first sort of Celtic strip, but also has great tones with success, and Celtic winning the double in that season, having almost rebuilt the squad with a new manager coming in, but Billy McNeil returning, new players coming and signing, gelling together, hitting the ground running, and stopping Graham Souness's chance to win the league at Rangers. I remember it a lot of that season very, very well. I remember playing out in the street with my friends at night time, playing across in the park. It's a great strip. Also, like, along with that kit, there was a fantastic tracksuit which I did see on eBay recently, but was going for £300. I should have gone for it, but I've got 2 kids, so they need to eat first. It's Umbro's kind of at this point now. They've gone away with the collars, and in the 90s, if in the late 80s, if you remember, Umbro have gone for a kind of button collars, which was a nice number. And I think it's just there's a real classiness to this sort of Celtic Centenary Kit. We wore for 2 seasons, up to 1989, and we won the Scottish Cup in 1989. And then after that, that was the end of the Centenary Year strip. I think it's the first strip I can associate, great success with Celtic as a wee boy, and I think it's a really classy kit.
Yeah, no, it definitely stood out to me. It was a really nice one. Was it one of the first times that you had sponsors on the kit? I'm imagining not so, because I imagine that you would have had sponsors a lot earlier than 88.
Yeah, with the 85, we'd have had C.R. Smith as a sponsor. I think there was one occasion in like 1981 when Celtic have a really random sponsor for 2 or 3 games that I've seen kits, but I'm not too sure. I probably need to get somebody like Paul John Dykes to verify that for me. But yeah, so I think Celtic would get 85, 84, 85 were bringing C.R. Smith, and we had at this point the same strip, the same sponsor as Rangers in our early days, and then Rangers went to McEwen's Lager. I think what happened was Scottish business, C.R. Smith, decided to have to sponsor either side and not just take one, otherwise there'd be a decrease in double glazing across the UK. But then of course by 1988, Rangers have got McEwen's Lager as their sponsor. So we would have had the sponsors going around that time. There is a stage with C.R. Smith right up through the 90s, then we went to People's Ford, then we were sponsorless at one point, and I have seen a fantastic Gola strip that was put towards for Celtic to take over in the 1990, I think it would have been, with no sponsor at the time. There was a kind of a bit of a limbo. And we eventually ended up having People's Forum, went back to C.R. Smith, which I think gone are the days of clubs being sponsored, or especially Premiership clubs or top clubs being sponsored by local businesses, I suppose.
What's your thoughts on shirts kind of nowadays? Because we see a bit of a big craze of it. I think it happened in the last 3 or 4 seasons where shirts were sort of coming out without a sponsorship on it. I mean, me personally, I maybe it's just because it's a sort of something of a habit that we've become so sort of accustomed to, and it's something I'm so used to seeing on a football shirt is a sponsorship. And when I see one without one, it's almost it's almost something that I have to sort of readjust for and take a bit of time to get used to. But me personally, I like a sponsorship on a shirt, and I think it's something that almost, for me, kind of completes a football shirt in a way.
I like, I would say the same. I like seeing a sponsor on a kit. Sometimes a lot of my friends who might buy Celtic tops might spend a bit extra to not have a sponsor. I do like sponsors on kits. I think it's kind of everything kind of works together these days. I know that St Pauli have recently offered fans, or last season offered fans, the opportunity to buy the new kit, pay up front for it because they were going for their own version, but to put their own sponsor on it so they could have bespoke kits per person that was buying them. No, I like you know, looking back and seeing 1980s French football and seeing like a giant TDK and then another sponsor, or you look to like Sweden and you see they've got their shirt sponsor. I'm not a big fan of sponsors on the sleeve. I don't really like that, and I don't really like a secondary sponsor on the back, especially up at the collar, you know. I take one big sponsor on the front and that'll be me. I don't like seeing loads and loads of sponsors. I'm kind of the maybe the extreme side of things where it just becomes too much. You know, you feel like a NASCAR driver.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's quite a lot of South American kits that just have sponsorships like plastered all over it. I think Japan, they kind of have the same sort of dealing over there as well. But yeah, I'm with you. I just like the sort of one sponsor, just in the, you know, the sort of torso of the kit, and yeah, good to go. Is it my turn? I think
it is, yeah.
For the next one. Yeah, so my next one, I'll go, you know, as you've gone for Celtic, I have to go for my team as well. I'm going to have to go for an Arsenal shirt, and I'm going to go with the... Let me just find it now. I'm going to go with the Arsenal Home 2004-05 kit. There was just... obviously, a lot of people, maybe with that sort of association side of things, will go for the previous year, the Invincible season. But for me, I would say that sort of 2003-04 kit, aesthetically, for me, it's not the most beautiful Arsenal kit. And that's just my opinion. Other people might, you know, sort of argue with that, and they might find it one of the best looking kits ever. But for me, there's just something about the following year, that kit. I just love the yellow piping on it. It's a kit that, in a way, I think looks better tucked in, and I like seeing players tucking the shirts in. Something I like seeing about Kieran Tierney, and he's sort of brought that back from his Celtic days, just tucking the shirt in, just getting on with business, and you know, playing the game in that sort of in fashion. It's just something, and that kit just looks really great with the shirt tucked in. Yeah, it's just, for me, I just love the way that it's sort of tailored, and I like how it almost sort of signals the transition between that sort of baggier 90s kit to the time of more or less like the kits that we see nowadays, where it's a bit more sort of slimline, it fits the body, it's a bit more tailored. Yeah, it's just a great kit.
Yeah, it's I do remember it very well. It's also sort of has a bit of an iconic feel to it, because it's the last time Arsenal wore a red and white kit at Highbury. And the season after they went the kind of red currant colour, you know, the dark red, go back
the burgundy, yeah.
But it's a lovely strip. Also, the interesting way about that Arsenal kit is the way the kind of yellow piping goes kind of through the red rather than a sort of trim. It's a great strip. It's a great choice. I think the style at that time was Nike were going through a thing called Total 90, where it was like, you're right, it's that kind of movement into the new sort of slimline feel and a bit more aerodynamic. It's a great kit. And Nike made amazing strips for Arsenal. In fact, as nice as some of the Adidas ones have been over the years, I really like the Nike era of Arsenal kits. Yeah,
no, they have definitely made some great kits, but it's just I remember days of sort of playing five-a-side football on concrete pitches, and just seeing a lot of kids with that shirt and just with Reyes and Henry on the back, and yeah, for me that was when Arsenal were in their absolute pomp, and just thinking that Arsenal's such a cool club at the time. So yeah.
Do you have a favourite player from that in that kit? Who's your player in that strip that you envisage?
Reyes, for me, for some reason, Reyes was, unfortunately, he didn't have the greatest of Arsenal careers. It started off with such a bang, and I think that was, during the time where I think there was a lot of excitement for Reyes, and I think a lot of Arsenal fans were just hoping Reyes would go on to have a career almost similar to Henry and Vieira. There was almost potential to sort of cement himself as a legend, but just for whatever reason, it just didn't sort of take off. And I think that was, when we sort of began to see Reyes in that following kit, like you said, that sort of burgundy one, that was when we were starting to see that, unfortunately Reyes wasn't able to fulfill his true potential. But I think just seeing him in that kit, that was when it was just, in that sort of bubble of excitement. And Reyes for me stands out as being a great player in that kit.
If you like football films, then come check out the Triple F Cinema, where I'm joined by guests, sometimes football fans, sometimes not, to review a specific football film. Give me 2 tickets to that football film right now.
Your next one, mate.
Okay, so I'm going to go for the FC San Pauli 2010-2011 season home shirt. Now, that was the 2010 was San Pauli's anniversary. They had been promoted from the second Bundesliga to the first Bundesliga. I think finished second in the May of that year. It was the 100th anniversary around that time, and they also had played, I think, the last 10 games in a woolen shirt that was meant to represent the very first ever San Pauli kit. So it was this big, heavy, old school, woolly shirt with the big sort of ties across. After that, they for the next season going up to Bundesliga, they had this cracking home kit which was reversible. So one side was a kind of orangey gold type colour, and the other side was more of a traditional St. Pauli brown, but emblazoned through it was lots of different photographs and images of St. Pauli over the years, from the club that had been founded in 1910 to the club that had kind of changed within the 1980s as the punk movement and the squatter movement and the Antifa movement kind of changed the shape of the city. So a great strip. Have great memories of being over and playing in Hamburg, and I've got that kit up in my room. I'll wear it regularly, and it was wonderful to see it over that course of that season. I think prior to that, getting St. Pauli on regular sort of Sky was quite difficult. So it would, Eurosport might show a few games. It certainly showed a couple in the seasons before. But this is the first kind of time I think I was able to get a bit more access to finding links and finding sites that were showing games, as well as finding it on kind of regular on TV. But yeah, great. Also, we have a win against Hamburg in it, and I think a draw against Hamburg. Apart from that, though, St. Pauli are back down to the Bundesliga 2 at the end of the season, finishing at the bottom of the Bundesliga. But it's a great kit. It's really heavy, still, because it's got 2 sides and it's reversible, but it's quite a heavy kit. And it's associated as well with players like Fabian Ball, wearing it. He actually made a reappearance for his testimonial game in 2014. That's a great kit. I think it's one of the sort of best St. Pauli kits of the sort of the noughties, I suppose.
I was actually going to text you with a reply asking which one of these was the kit, and then I did a little bit of research, and I didn't realise that it was actually reversible. I mean, are there many kits that you can think of that's been the case, that you get reversible kits? Because that's definitely not the case for me. That's the only one that I can think of that's actually reversible.
Did Manchester United ever have a reversible kit?
Not that I can think of, but yeah, maybe this sort of rings a very faint bell that possibly they did have. But we'll have to do some research on that. I can confirm that Manchester United did have a reversible kit for the 2001-2002 season. England also has had a reversible red and blue number, which they wore between 2002 and 2004. Maybe it might be that heaviness that you kind of alluded to before, that it hasn't been done so often. If you can sort of improve the technology to not make it as heavy, then it's something that makes a lot of sense. Was one sort of side an away kit and one side the home kit? Was how did that kind of work out, or was it just sort of different in a way?
I'm sure they had a white away kit that season as well. I think they alternated between. Certainly the gold colour, which was a kind of difficult. I don't even know I think we made it a kind of goldy brown to represent the 100 years. It was almost like a kind of like a copper or something. Yes, or a bronze type colour. But I saw them wearing both. They wore them both at home in games and also away. But I think they just would alternate between. One from experience, one is very like the shinier one, which is the gold one. When you wear it reversed, sometimes it's quite itchy. You know, if you can, it chafes away. I do remember though wearing goalkeeper tops, swapping somebody else having a shot on goals, especially during the game of World Cup doubles, and then swapping and they just like reversing it over and putting on the second side. You've been equally bogging in your inside as you were outside, but that would just be over the park with your mates.
For me, it just seems to be something that's quite effective and useful. So yeah, it's something that you kind of hope to see in the future, and other sort of clubs clocking onto that and maybe coming up with similar sort of things. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I can't think of any other reversible. I'm still trying to rack my brain for reversible kits, but that's not happening.
Yeah, well, we'll have to do a bit of posthumous research on it and see if we can find anything out. The next kit I'll go for is it's quite a recent one actually. It's Borussia Mönchengladbach home kit. So I'm staying in Germany, and yeah, it's just I think I discovered this just playing FIFA a couple of years back, and yeah, it's just I've not really seen many shirts with that sort of smoke effect on it. There's almost a sort of photographic kind of imagery that's used on the kit, and it's really a kind of the epitome of a modern day kit in a way, and just aesthetically really pleasing in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a really interesting looking kit with the kind of smoke down the bottom. Until you showed it to me, I hadn't seen it before, but it kind of made me think about kits that maybe have brought in photographs in or like using photography, and think like in the 90s Man United had the one which Old Trafford's faded in, but I've never seen something like you say that's been as obvious as on that strip. Like I suppose it kind of represents a bit of like kind of fan ultra sort of culture as well, doesn't it? It's pretty cool kit. It shows how far football strips have gone. I wonder, like, what would you, if you were to think of a strip, what would you like to see emblazoned on another strip? What sort of things would you have? There's limited things, but they work it so well, don't they? With the Mönchengladbach one.
Yeah, no, it's a real good question you bring up, and I think that sort of with that coloured smoke, sort of flared imagery that I didn't really think of it until you sort of mentioned it. That good sort of connection with the fan base, especially the ultra culture. I can't really. There isn't really anything that sort of springs to mind. Maybe sort of scarves and things like that perhaps sort of incorporated into shirts. But yeah, there isn't really anything too much that I can think of really. Is there anything that springs to your mind?
Nothing as kind of out there as that style. They saw it in the 90s, the USA 94 with the USA away kit with the stripes, the stars that were on it. That was actually done from a photocopy machine. They took the images of stars and put them through a photocopier and sort of pulled it down. That's how you got that kind of warbly movement, which is really kind of early sort of playing about with Photoshop idea, isn't it? And that was, they also they tried to make that shirt look like it was denim, but not actually make it out of denim material. I can't think of anything else that would be like that. You know, everything else has very much been patterns or marks or etc., but nothing that would be as such with a photograph. Or like sometimes, you know, the Simpoli home kit had things, but they were very much part of the fabric, and they felt as if they were just kind of, you know, hiding in the fabric rather than being overtly part of the design. What made you pick Mönchengladbach on FIFA? Was it just by random pressing the button to see what team popped up, or?
Yeah, I think it possibly was. He was just pressing that random square button and just whatever came up. But then I think I grew a bit of an affinity towards him because they had the current Borussia Dortmund manager, Marco Rose, as their manager, and there was I think he'd come over from Red Bull Salzburg, and there was a bit of excitement for Mönchengladbach at the time, and they had quite a good team because they had Lilian. I think they've still got him. Lilian Thuram's son, Marcus Thuram, was a real sort of exciting prospect for him, and they had a few other players as well. And that was just the reason. I actually ended up buying that shirt as well. So I've actually got I've got a shirt of that as well. So that's how much I enjoyed playing as them on FIFA and enjoyed the kit as well. So.
Excellent. See, like when we think about shirts and kits, sometimes as well, you know, shirt companies must think, who's my buyer for this? Who's going to be wearing this kit? I love some of the Adidas training gear that Man United and Arsenal have got just now. But yeah, it's the same with like in the early 2000s when Kappa were doing the kind of ultra tight, ultra skinny strips. But then I always imagine, like, how would they fare in places where that, you know, who's going to, you know, are they still going to have everyone going to buy them? Would everyone purchase them? Or might people just decide to, you know, think that something's too garish or too out there, too outlandish to buy? But it's a cracking strip. I think like when companies are coming up with strategies for who they're going to, you know, who's going to buy their kit. It's not just fans, but the casual fans. Are we getting them through things like FIFA? Is that where people are becoming exposed to games, or Champ Manager or Football Manager? It's a great. Did you get anything? Did you get a name in the back as well at all?
No, I didn't. But there's a nice, there's a sort of a few bits of detail which that I think they've got Borussia Mönchengladbach actually on the sort of the back at the bottom of the shirt. And I think there's something else sort of on just at the back of the collar as well. I can't remember exactly what it is. It might be BMG or something like that. But yeah, what's your thoughts on sort of names on the back of shirt? Because for me, I don't mind too much whether it has it on or not. But yeah, I've got a couple of shirts with names on the back. I'll mention it later, but I've got an Arsenal. A few Arsenal shirts with names on the back, but sometimes I'm kind of not too fussed whether I have one on there or not.
Yeah, I got, when I was younger, I had a Newcastle kit and I got Sheridan on the back, and then I had a Bolton kit. So I used to sometimes buy strips that I liked at the end of the season when they were dead cheap, and I had a Bolton kit and I got Shez 7 on the back. And I don't actually know what happened to that one, but yeah, I don't tend to get names or anything. I got number 8 for Craig Burley when he was playing at Celtic, but at the time Celtic didn't have the names on the back of the strip, so I didn't get a name on it. And then now if I see a strip in the back, fair enough, but I don't like to see like a replica kit or somebody that's, you know, got a replica strip that has a name in the back and that wouldn't have been there at the time, if you know. So like you might get a strip, say it's like an England World Cup 1986 remake, and on the back it has, you know, it's got Butcher written on it, and then that would never have happened. So I don't like it when it's out of place. It's fine if people get it. Sometimes you might see somebody that's got a nickname in the back, or somebody that deliberately decides to get a player and realises 6 months in that they're never even starting. Like I did see years ago a Celtic top with Ali Adair on the back, and I think he played like 4 games for Celtic, and that was him, you know, in his time. So yeah, it just depends who's. If people want to get stripped and names in the back, fair play. I don't like some. You know, you might see somebody that's got like God on the back. Is there an acceptable age when you should stop getting names in the back of your shirt?
Yeah, that's definitely a debate that I've heard a few times. You know, is there like you say, is there an age that you say names on the back of the shirt, cut it out? But I mean, yeah, for me, it doesn't bother me. I don't really see it as, you can't be a 40-year-old man walking around with a name on the back of a shirt. For me, that you can do whatever the hell you want. That's completely fine.
Totally.
And it's football, and it kind of brings out the kid in us anyway. So why not? But yeah, I don't really see it as childish or mature. Or whatever. It's just do what you enjoy, really.
Yeah, I still play football on a Friday. I'm a school teacher during the week, and I play football against the 6th-year pupils on a Friday. I'm 41 on my next birthday. I'll still play. I play like amateur football with a St Pauli supporters team. I play sevens with my mates, and a lot of time when I score goals, I can't help but hit out with like 1990s commentary, or just like shout something, and I've got like 17-year-olds that are more mature than I might look at, like, and I'm just running around going, and it's there, Steve Ball, just hand raised, or running at the back post and screaming, like rather than shouting, screaming, Shearer, and so I can't help it. So there's maybe the acceptability, and you've got to stop doing that. Yeah.
Nah, you got to carry that on, my friend.
Yeah.
It's the reason why we love football. I mean, me personally, I just takes you back to those days, and yeah, it's just something you've got to embrace, really. So yeah.
If you're interested in coming on the show for an Under the Floodlights special to talk about your favourite player or manager, please email the FFF2021@gmail.com or DM the FFF84 on Twitter. All contact details will be in the episode description. Hope you're all keeping safe, and thanks again for listening to the FFF.
What's your next kit, my friend?
My next kit is the 1984-85 and 83-84, 84-85 Everton Le Coq Sportif strip. I was never a massive Everton fan as a child. I'm not really a big Everton fan these days, but I love that kit. I think it's just great, and it wouldn't have been probably till about 1997 whenever I was watching Match of the 80s, which was the Danny Baker hosted BBC programme, which goes up to 1986, and it's a great 80s documentary on football at the time, and has a really, Everton are one of the teams that really feature in that season because it's the most successful period, and it's just a wonderful strip. It's like, it is so different from anything else that's out there in the wonderful world of 80s football kits, with the kind of the high collar kind of tucked in. It's kind of made of material. I bought one on from Toffs a few years ago. The Hafnia sponsor, which I never knew what Hafnia was. It turned out it was like a Danish. It's a Danish ham company. Like it's a chopped pork tinned ham company. Everton have got.
They're like spam.
Yeah, totally. Everton have got their new badge on it as well. And I just kind of like seeing footage of 80s Everton, which I think, Kenny Dalglish and Liverpool were just a great side, and two really, really good football teams. But I love watching that 1980s Everton side because there's a bit of an underdog about them as well, and all of a sudden Howard Kendall's got them chasing the FA Cup, chasing league championships and success in Europe as well. Imagine that how Liverpool as a city just having two great football teams. It's a great kit. I'm not as big a fan of the one that came after that, where it's kind of the half white, half blue with Gary Lineker's sporting that quite a lot. But 84-85 Everton kit's a great number. Le Coq Sportif, kind of all too associated maybe with the kind of 80s casual culture, and then kind of disappeared from Europe. It was probably from Britain and went back to sponsor a lot of French teams. But it's a great kit, really, really nice strip.
Yeah. Am I right in saying that they kind of brought out a retro take on it not that long ago, I think, maybe 5-6 seasons ago? Yeah,
they brought it back whenever Everton went back to being sponsored by Le Coq Sportif, and it was just, I think it was maybe for one season. And I think that's what actually jogged my memory, thinking about going and getting it, but looking for the original 85 one. It's a cracking strip. It shows how well it's thought of whenever a club decide to put back out almost exactly as it is, the strip. Like you saw, like Nike or Adidas, sorry's versions of the bruised banana kit that's kind of come back a couple of times over the years, with like Arsenal, like was it 2 or 3 years ago, where it's a variation of it, but not the exact same. But the Le Coq Sportif one with the Everton is like, it is exactly the same strip. That's lovely, really, really nice.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, it's a very nice kit. There's something about Everton as well with their kits. They're just so, the colours of Everton are almost so, I don't want to say plain because I don't want to upset anyone, but in a sense it's such a simple colour, but for some reason the designers of the kit, whether it be Lecoq Sportif or Umbro, they managed to do quite a lot with just such a simple blue and a simple white, but there's so much that they're able to sort of convey, and there's almost, as soon as you see that, you can, that colour you can think of for Ipswich Town, for Chelsea, those combinations, but when you see it done for Everton, it's almost, it's Everton in a way. I don't know if that's a bit of a strange thing to say, but it's weird how they managed to make it so recognisable.
I definitely, yes, they're limited back in with what you can do with lots of different things, but it's when you see it, and it's like almost like Subutio, and you get multiple teams, but the Everton, that strip particularly is identifiable with Everton certainly straight away. Yeah,
brilliant. I'll just have to go for my next one, which is the Arsenal away 1995-96 kit, and it's that dark blue, light blue lightning combination that I remember sort of seeing on a friend at a youth club back at school, just sort of seeing it and thinking, wow, what an amazing kit, just looked so cool. And it's a weird one as well, because it's a kit where not so many sort of Arsenal fans really consider it to be a best, or one of their best, or one of their favourites. But for me, I just find it incredible, because I think most fans have more of a penchant for the bruised banana kit, and perhaps that might be because with the bruised banana kit there was, it was synonymous with the glory days of George Graham, and that blue lightning kit of 95-96 was when we had Bruce Rioch as manager. So you can kind of put those managers against each other, and I think George Graham will come up trumps every time. But for me, I just aesthetically, really, really love that kit.
It's a great kit. Funnily enough, like the season before, when Arsenal kind of launched those colours, it was a totally different take on what colours had been used for Arsenal kits over the years, and they kind of retaining that stripe, the lightning that's going through it. It's like, I think Nike did a great job, and it's kind of almost in the early years of Nike coming back to British football. The 95-96 season brings a lots of great strips, and I think that the Arsenal one's definitely up there. My dad actually knew George, or my Uncle John, my dad's brother, knew George Graham growing up, and they had a friend who introduced him. He said, "This is Geordie," and it was George Graham, a young George Graham. So he's about 17, 18. My dad says he was like a cool, tall boy with he had a big white trench coat on, and that was they were all about 17, 18 at that time. And George Graham was like one of their pals from Baylis, from Bargady, which is not too far from where my dad grew up. Great kit. Do they not have kind of like an interest in like for kind of like the Gothic sort of lettering on it as well with the shorts as a different badge from the top? Am I right? Is that right? Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the case, because I think that was used quite a bit during that sort of period of time, that had that sort of Gothic kind of lettering, because I think there was more synonymous with that old badge. That's my favourite Arsenal badge, and that's when I kind of fell in love with Arsenal as well. They had that real sort of old classic sort of traditional sort of crest, and that was brilliant. But what I've really found interesting as well with that kit, like you sort of mentioned before, the previous season they had it was more or less, it was almost like an evolution to finally get to that kit, whereas you kind of saw the kit just with those sort of zigzag lines but without the light blue, and then the light blue came in to sort of emphasize and show that lightning strike. And I think it's kind of cool to see it sort of progress to become what in my mind is a beautiful kit.
I think there's also a yellow prototype of that strip that is somewhere out in existence. Like or maybe they were from '95, the '94-'95 season. But there is meant to be some sort of a yellow version of it that's never saw the light of day.
Right, okay. I'll have to hunt that down on the old internet.
Yeah. Hopefully, I'm not lying to you.
Just sort of imagining that in my mind is enough. So that's so cool.
It's also the evolution of Arsenal as well. At this point, it's Bergkamp's arrived, and David Platt's arrived, and it starts the trend of superstars coming to the UK and superstars coming to Arsenal.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, because that's the thing when you sort of mention what I mentioned with Bruce Rioch, not the best Arsenal manager, and not a manager that most Arsenal fans will want to hear his name too much. But yeah, that was the manager that brought in Dennis Bergkamp, and we're kind of grateful for him for that, because Dennis Bergkamp is, in my mind, one of not just the greatest Arsenal strikers, but just one of the greatest strikers of all time. Who's just a joy to watch. Your next choice?
I think I'm going to go with the 95-96 season as well, and I'm going to go with the Newcastle Adidas away kit, which is a lovely dark blue and sort of purple or wine coloured. Also, it's like a rugby shirt. It's got the grandad collar. Apparently, it's based on the old Newcastle West End strip, which is what they used before they joined up with Newcastle East End to form Newcastle United. Right. It has the Newcastle Brown Ale sponsorship, but it's like pulled the colours in as well to suit the whole aesthetic of the strip. And it's a really nice kit at a time when companies like Nike and Adidas were trying to create kits that would look good with jeans and look good with casual wear, because they realised that the target market they were going for wasn't just wee boys that were playing out in the street anymore. It was, going for adults and going for people that wanted to wear their kit down the pub. It's a great strip. It's a great time of football, and certainly I'm sure that many Newcastle fans of a certain age would have slightly bittersweet memories of that season, but seeing some of the absolute genius performances from players like Ginola, Spria, Les Ferdinand, Peter Beardsley, just like vintage Newcastle, just playing absolutely football that just captured the casual fan football that I think that people watch Newcastle wanting them to win the league that season so much. If they were outside of their own club, but it's a great strip. I remember my dad, who never ever owned a football strip in his life, seeing it and contemplating buying it one day, and I was like, please buy it, because then I might get to wear it. Please buy it, I might get to wear it. But he never bought it. Never happening.
Are you not tempted to buy a sort of retro version of it now, or?
I don't know. Maybe if I saw it was the right sort of price and things, it maybe, but I don't know. If I saw it somewhere, and maybe then, but I don't know if I would go out my way to hunt it down and find it. But it's a cracking kit. It's a really, really nice kit from that time. I should have got it for my 16th birthday.
Is that what is one of your sort of gripes you're not going to let go of?
Do you know what? You're going to hate me and press the hang up button. But do you know what strip I got on my 16th birthday? Got a Spurs kit. The pony one.
Yeah, nice speaking to you, mate.
Yeah.
Oh, right. So which one was that? It was a pony kit?
It was a pony Spurs kit. It was long sleeve. I think I just kind of got a Celtic strip and a Spurs kit. It was like I get to choose two strips, which is unheard of at the time. But I opted for a Spurs kit, a Spurs top anyway. Yeah. But I don't have it anymore. So you'd be happy to know that's somebody has it somewhere.
They weren't much competition to us back then.
Not
anyway,
then.
So yeah, I'll let you off. Yeah.
young and dumb. No, I like Spurs back then.
Yeah, no problem, man. I'll let you off. But no, it's a sort of interesting thing that you mentioned about that Newcastle kit. How it really, I never really thought of it until you mentioned it. How much it does look like a rugby top in a way. And yeah, you sort of mentioned how they sort of tried to cater it towards adults. Yeah, it sort of reminds me back of that time in the 90s where rugby tops were really trendy and really in fashion at that time. And I can, just imagine dads and whatnot sort of walking around with that on, along with, sort of a Leicester Tigers top or a Northampton Saints top and whatnot.
Super baggy trousers as well. I think everyone was into the very, very baggy versions. That's the other thing as well. I think I got, for some reason, when I got that Spurs top, I got it in XL. And loads of people, like, everything was still baggy back then, so if you see like a replica kit from that era, it tends to be, even the medium size was big, sort of billowing on people as you kind of ran in them. I tell you what, though, Ginola looked, he was just a beautiful man. He looked great in anything.
And it was great that sort of the period of time that you mentioned as well with Kevin Keegan, because that's arguably, obviously Newcastle are going through a bit of a purple patch at the moment with their ownership, but I'm sure they'll be hoping to sort of come back to times that were so golden and so glorious for them when they had Kevin Keegan as their manager. But like you say, they had some fantastic players, Asprilla, Shearer. I know Shearer wasn't there at that time, was he? But you had sort of Ferdinand and some great players, and Ginola, as you mentioned as well.
Yeah, it's great kit. So you also have a strip from that season, I'm right in saying?
The Liverpool Kit, 95-96, yes, that's right. The Liverpool Kit I went for because, I don't know, there's just something about that combination of that white and the green, because it's a dark, obviously white and the green is a combination you're quite familiar with, but it's almost a very sort of deep dark green, and you don't get many kits that have that sort of 4 squares combination, almost like a Battenberg cake in a way. It's it just looks really cool, but I'm not sure in terms of association for Liverpool fans it's one that they're too fond of, because what sticks in my mind the most is that was the kit they were wearing when they lost to Man United in that FA Cup final, the goal that Eric Cantona scored, that somehow how he managed to get that volley through a sea of players, and I, at the time, I just kind of despised everything about Man United. A little bit with me still does, but I kind of feel sorry for him a bit nowadays. But I kind of remember having a bit of an affinity towards Liverpool in that game, just because, maybe it's just because they were going up against Man United, who I detested. So, and I just remember seeing Liverpool in that kit when they came out. It's like, wow, they look brilliant, and it's just a lovely kit.
Yeah, do you know, it's like that strip, with the kind of quarters you talk about teams. I can only think of like Bristol Rovers, I think, had a kind of quarter kit around that time. It was a kind of jockey sort of strip feel to it, but I was looking into it, like that was based on a strip that Liverpool had in like the 1800s. It was blue and white, so with the quarters, so they would have kept that green colour that they'd used in previous away kits. Rangers also had a very similar kit the same season, which was red in the quarters, and the collar was like the kind of the way that Liverpool's home kit was, the cricket jumper sort of style, It's a great kit. I kind of my lasting memory probably would be the FA Cup final, Ian Rush in that kit, and the kind of emerging Robbie Fowler coming out. A lovely strip, once again designed to suit people wearing with casual clothes, but it's a really kind of nicely cut sort of kit too. They kind of taken the sort of same colours and the same aesthetics and then applying them in a completely different fashion. It was quite out there, wasn't it, compared to the other strips? I can't remember what the back was like, if the back was quarters or the back was like a whole colour, or if it was plain white, or I can't remember what the back was like, but it was a great strip. Yeah,
because I might be wrong a little bit in terms of the timings of this, but I'm pretty sure that was a kit that was during the sort of same time as the Spice Boys. So when we had, so Redknapp and Fowler and McManaman. Maybe that's, as you were sort of mentioning before, how they wanted to release something a bit more innovative and something a bit more daring in a way, and like you say, catered more towards adults. And I can I don't know if they did some photo shoots, but I'm pretty sure they did some photo shoots with those 4 Spice Boys, and I'm pretty sure it was in that kit as well. So yeah, it definitely makes a lot of sense when you put it like that.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, so Liverpool, that's the FA Cup final when those 4 are out with, or the whole team are out with the cream Versace collarless Grandad collar suits. But you know, like, see how those guys who were called the Spice Boys. That pretty much is the way, like, so many footballers are now. You know, you wouldn't think twice about how when you see a footballer that's a young, handsome footballer that's out wearing kind of like kind of clothes that are kind of wild or just like they kind of got that a wee bit tight in the neck, because, you know, football was kind of going through that transition of what footballers looked like in the 1980s and mid 90s to what they kind of became later on, and there were like 4 young guys that like did their hair and wore gel and were good looking and everything else. You know, Giggs at Man United, he didn't get that sort of treatment. Beckham comes along after, but they were that kind of that era, was that blueprint, and maybe just kind of being christened that by the newspapers was as if to say, you know, that, you know, it was talking them down, but really that's just how footballers kind of changed and what they became. I don't think they did anything really to merit being called that at all, apart from just being like kind of 4 good-looking guys that were playing for Liverpool at the time, just because they didn't have, you know, Terry McDermott moustaches and curly hair. That's from you know, when you think of like Souness, they were just a very, very different type of player, or in terms of aesthetics, but they were great footballers, and it was another great team to watch. They were actually, that Liverpool team was a great side. You know, we forget about how good they were, because that season was all about like Cantona, his return to football, and how good the Newcastle team were. But they were a great Liverpool side as well.
Yeah. I think maybe they just went because of the fact that, you know, like a lot of sort of media and punditry likes to do is make the connection between sort of pop culture and football, and I think during the time Spice Girls were absolutely flying, so maybe just to find football's answer to the Spice Girls was a way to sort of sell tickets a bit more. It was it's a brilliant kit, and it's one that, like I sort of mentioned before, I don't know how many sort of Liverpool fans will look back at that and think, oh, it was sort of glorious times. But it's weird as well how that kit, aesthetically pleasing as it is, I think might be last season, or it might even be this season, there's actually like a sort of retro take on it, and yeah, for me it's such a traditional Liverpool away kit. I'm just surprised that it hasn't been sort of done before as a retro take.
How long do you have to go before we can start doing retro? You know, how long do you get to before you can recycle kits or redo it again? And maybe with Liverpool being Liverpool with Nike now, aren't they? So it's good to see that Nike are able to even go back and look in the back catalogue to see, right, what can we do from those days, which is great to see. It's a great kit. It's the colours, you know, Liverpool have some great kits that have played off those kind of green colours. I do like a Liverpool yellow and red away kit. I've always liked that as the away kit for Liverpool, but it's a great strip, that one.
Definitely. Right, Paul, I'm going to have to wrap things up because I do have a sort of extra list on here of sort of honourable mentions to sort of go through as well. But you know what? We'll just have to leave that for another show because I think we can talk equally as much about those as well. So, we'll have to do that for another time, my friend. But it's been a pleasure having you on, and it's been a pleasure just going through some wonderful kits and sort of waxing lyrical about some of the best football shirts out there.
Wonderful. Thanks very much for having me on the show once again, and all the very best with everything to come.
Thank you so much for listening to the Triple F. If you could please drop a like on our Facebook page, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and follow us on Twitter, that would be massively appreciated. Hope you're all keeping safe, and thanks again for listening to the Triple F.